And it's ready.
Oh,
Let it go.
ready.
Let's go. Imagine. Oh, wait a minute. Do you have the two? You have something to write with, right? You got your trusty notebook. Hell yeah. All right. Imagine your life at peak impact. Okay. And I
Yeah.
want you to draw your impact at that moment.
Okay. My goal is not to be an artist in life, but this is what I draw.
Hey.
And the logic simply, I intend to live in two very far away places, and I would like a house in both of them. My wife doesn't like winter, so somewhere hot for half the year, somewhere hot for the other half of the year,
I love
And
it.
that's basically all I work towards.
I love it, bro. And what was the circle in the middle?
The globe, you know.
It's the okay, two. I like it. You did east and west. You should have been like
Here we go.
north and south.
Not drawn to scale. Not drawn to
Yeah, yeah,
scale.
not north to scale. I like. I love it, bro. When did this dream start?
I mean, I think it's just hard to find a place. I lived in a lot of places, right? And I think
Yeah.
I learned enough that it's hard to find a place that you want to live all year round. Like I like to live in Thailand, but Thailand has big problems with smoke. So logically, you shouldn't stay here for a good chunk of the year because the pollution is so bad. So in that case, to go to Europe. In Europe, the winter is really depressing. So finding that balance between living in two different places
All right.
is,
And when
yeah.
did you move to Thailand?
We're coming up to 2 years now.
All right. That's great. And was it because of that? Because it was like depressing as hell and like you lived in England
Uh,
before that?
No, I was living in, what was I doing when we moved? A little bit Malta, a little bit Wales. I mean, we
Okay.
lived in Amsterdam, Berlin, then we did Southeast Asia for a bit, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, all that. Then back to Europe again, a bit
Yeah.
of Malta, a bit of UK, so London, Wales, like just we lived in mostly continental Europe.
I love
But
it.
then the thing is, if we're bootstrapping, which we are, like the cost of living is so low here. I think people really underestimate the impact on your life by just relocating to a cheaper place. Like your runway can just be so extended. Like if you want to really just grind, there's no better
Yeah.
place than a country where a meal costs $2, your rent's $500, and it's like a really nice place. Like you just don't have to do anything. Um, except grind. And then as you start to be winning more, you can start to rein back some of those things if you like them. Maybe you like to cook, so you start to cook on the occasion where you like to, but
Yeah.
you're not under the like rope of doing the weekly shop every week and all that stuff. You can just grind on what you're working on.
I love it. And you know, what are we exploring in this workshop? Is it your products, like your SaaS, your future SaaS, your service? Like, what is going on right
Ah,
now in terms of
I mean, I think it's just a lifestyle thing for me. Like I work on a lot of projects, not tied to
yeah,
none of them. Some of them are going to win, some of them are going to lose, some of them, like, it's hard to say. My intention is to
yeah,
build lots of things,
okay,
and then just kind of like, find that good. I think the hard part is finding that good work-life balance after. Because I mean, in the beginning, you are not in a good work-life balance, right? You're working
yeah.
too many hours, you work the weekends. And then at some point, you have to accept, okay, you have to rein back and now you have to actually start doing more logical 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Maybe that's a dream, but that's at least the way I see it.
Yeah. So you like the building process. Like you're like, hell yeah, I love building stuff.
I mean, I'm not necessarily a big builder. I mean, I'm a developer, right, by trade. Like I do a
Yeah.
lot of development. I'm becoming very disillusioned by building stuff. My intention is to very much become a buyer. I don't really like the early stage that much. I think
Mhm.
I can offer a lot of value later stage and kind of de-risk that stuff. But you need
Okay.
enough capital to buy in that range. So grinding my way to that point with like a little holdco, some boring SaaS, a few little projects, and yeah,
Yeah.
just living a nice, easy life. I'm not seeking mega riches. I'm just looking for getting out of the work grind.
But the mentality, leads to like mega riches. Like
Maybe.
buying company, especially with your taste, and kind of your eye for because I consider you like the SEO like demon, like in the night, like the boogeyman of SEO, right?
I
So,
mean, I'm just a regular old guy, but with a ton of fucking websites. So you get a lot of
but
you get a
but
lot of
that's
point of reference.
yeah, yeah, that's good enough, right? like, and you care about it, like, you know, you're not a very like public guy, you know, so you, the way you're gonna grow things is that, right? SEO,
Yeah.
technically, you know.
Anything I share publicly, like so when I release the name of the product, that's when you know you're being marketed to. Because if I'm not talking about the product name, it's because you're simply not the buyer, you know? And so like on Twitter, typically like my target market is not there. Like
Yeah,
if I was selling SEO services, it definitely is. Like I get a lot of demand on that, but it's definitely
yeah,
not for my SaaS. And I really like the fact it's not, you know, it's really boring. It's B2B. No one really cares about it. No one wants to come in my niche and fight with me. No one even knows about the niche, you know?
yeah. No, it's great. But this kind of like de-risking, buying things and de-risking it. Like, have you heard of Mark Leonard?
I didn't hear Mark Leonard. No.
Okay, Mark Leonard is like this kind of VC guy who was like, I don't like these 10-year cycles of VC. Because he's like, I
Yeah.
like the idea of helping founders out and whatever, but I don't like this, you know, I gotta exit at 10 years, so I need to create the maximum amount of growth in 10 years. So what
Yeah,
he
the
did, he
unsustainable VC model, right?
exactly unsustainable VC model. So what he did was like, he's like, I like these vertical software businesses, you know, kind of like what you're talking about, like a niche nobody
Yeah.
knows, vertical software, and I'm just gonna buy and hold,
Yeah.
you know, and he buys them, de-risks them, like you're saying, because he has now all this knowledge of his portfolio that he can
Yeah.
pass on to every new acquisition, and brought on whatever. I think his initial investment, because he raised money to kind of start buying companies. He started with 20 million and turned that into like $30 billion.
Yeah.
You know, just doing that, buying boring companies with
And the returns on these SaaS businesses are crazy, you know, in terms of like if you buy one and you get it at like a 3 or 4x multiple, you're not getting, and especially if you have like some unfair advantage you can add to it that the
uh,
previous team couldn't add, you know,
yeah,
maybe it's SEO, maybe it's whatever paid ads.
uh,
But then like the exit multiples, if you can just double the MRR, you know, like your payoff period can be so quick.
yeah,
So if you can assess that you can add value in that acquisition process, then it just doesn't make sense to build at that point. You're just only doing that high value work where you think you can do stuff, put it in the portfolio, leave it alone, and let it grow and never sell it.
yeah. I love it. You know, like it's good that you're lucid about what you want. And I feel like, bro, having a partner in life makes that so much easier. Because, like you're saying, oh, you know, a lot of people can go to Thailand and de-risk stuff, but like, I mean, live and have huge runway and whatever. But like, a
Yeah.
lot of people, single people especially, can't go to Thailand and not, oh, girls, parties, whatever,
Wow.
and all that, you know, and all of that just goes away when you have like a partner.
I mean, I'm 30. I'm past my drinking days. You know, I had my
Yeah,
fun. I don't really drink much anymore. And my
yeah,
wife, we also work on this together, right? So like she
yeah,
does the front end, she does all the design, and I'm more the
yeah,
back end guy and the data guy. So like the
yeah.
perfect combination. I don't advise working with your wife. I think it makes your relationship much more complicated and it takes a lot of work to get there. But
Yeah,
in my case, it has worked out well.
awesome.
Uh, but
I
yeah, like
love
I agree. Like just coming to Thailand and thinking the cheap life is going to be the way ain't going to work for you because
it.
food is cheap, but so's the beer.
uh, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Um, all right. What's your proudest moment in your life when you think about
Proudest moment. Let me think. I would say like I, it's not going to be the answer you want, right? But I'm a bit of a self-improvement junkie, right? So my proudest moment, it wouldn't be one singular moment. It's the case that I get really fixated on something. I consume every piece of knowledge about it, and then I kind of hit this point where I feel like I'm not going to work on that anymore because I don't really think there's much more value in me. You know, like that last 10% I have to grind to get to. And I really enjoy that point where I've really consumed as much of a topic as possible. I've
it?
extracted all the value from it. I put it into my skill set. And then next time I come across that, like I really like that. Like someone says, "Oh, how do you do this?" And you can just literally pull exact experience, like, "Oh, you do it like this because I did it this time, and this is what happened, and this is what went bad." And just like I really enjoy that opportunity to share my experience with someone else that's literally like maybe a few steps behind. And
Yeah,
yeah, like for me that there's not much more to it than that. Making money's only so good, but seeing someone be able to avoid that slow car
yeah,
crash.
I love it. Like, can you tell us, like, when did that start? Like, or yeah, when did that start? Like, what was the first thing you did that with?
So maybe I go a bit of my background. Like I
Yeah,
started in tech support. I've been programming since a really young age, always like just consuming a topic, grinding on it, but I mostly don't do social media.
yeah,
I kind of only was networking with coworkers, and then when
uh,
you go off on your own, you kind of lose that element of it, right? So I've been doing
yeah,
that for a long time in IT support, at least when I started my career.
hmm
And so like I really enjoyed that element of it always, that customer service part of it. So
hmm
I guess just since the beginning, and I don't really think the topic matters so much, just more so the fact that, you can add value to someone. And it's not always about making money on the deal. Sometimes it's just about the experience, the sharing. You help them today, maybe in 5 years they come back and they learn something cool and they're going to tell you too. I think that's where the true value is.
I like it. See, it's kind of like a customer service thing. Like, you really value this, because I kind of had that when I started my career, right? Uh, I worked with in a branding agency, and all the designers and the team, like, these stupid clients, they don't know what they want and whatever. And I kind of stood out by being, nah, like, by being the client advocate,
Exactly.
and saying, hey, they want this. How can we go above and beyond and give them what they want and more, and all of that? So it does really differentiate. Like, it distinguishes you so much, because you do have to not only know what the client knows, by extracting it correctly. You gotta know what they want, and that's when all the consumption helps, because you're like, oh, client, you don't know about this, this, and that. Let me show
Yeah,
you this whole new
exactly.
world of awesome stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah, for
what's your
sure.
story, bro? Like, when, if you think about, what is your story, what is the story you're telling with your life? Like, if you were gonna, like, look back and, like, do that, like, what is that?
I mostly intend to like retire into the woods, and have no
Mhm,
story. I do this work now because I think it's like the most sustainable way to live. I don't buy into this concept that you wait for retirement and then you start to live. I really don't accept it. You see many people that die before they hit retirement age, or like they get sick once they retire. I'm not really interested in that. I want to, if I wake up one morning and I don't want to go to work, I just don't want to go to work, and it's not
mhm.
optimal for anyone, whether I'm an employee or working for myself to do that. So my, my main goal there is just like basically everything I can do to get true freedom in that regard. Um,
Love it. Like, the story of no stories is a story, right?
and I'll hit a point where everything is working well enough. I don't need to push it myself anymore, and then I'll probably disappear. If I'm honest, like as at least from the public face. And at that point in time, you'll have enough people where you've networked with and spoke to, and then you keep those personal relationships, but you're not necessarily trying to be outwardly, I'm doing this stuff anymore.
But I feel that, like, on so many levels, right? Because, like, I'm kind of in the same boat, where it's like, I don't care about legacy, right?
Yeah,
And that's kind of what I'm getting from your answer, right? And that's not what I'm asking. I'm not saying what will people remember you for, because, like you, I don't care what people remember you for, right? I just want to know what, like, drives you above the freedom thing, because you getting freedom is not as difficult as people make it seem, right? Like you said, you can just move.
just move to
And a lot
Thailand,
of
and then you can
times,
be free real quick.
yeah, you can move a lot of times and just be free, and then you can build, business, because, like, a lot of people want it now. And if you kind of throw that notion away and just be like, oh, it's gonna take time, gotta build something, that's gonna take time, gotta market it, make money from it, that's gonna take time. But then you just keep doing that and keep focused on that. At some point, you're gonna get to a point where you have the two houses, you have the money to fly to them, as much as you want, right? You have the money to eat whatever you want, do all the activities you want with the people you love, right? And that's living, right? Like, that's life for me.
Yeah.
And from what I'm understanding for you, is it's the same, just enjoying life, being happy, being positive energy around the people around you. People feel energized when they're around you, feel calm, feel, peaceful, all of that. But if you just gonna give me like one thing where it's like, where do you think this comes from? Because understanding the origins of things gives you power over your destiny, right? So
Yep.
without sharing too much if you're not comfortable, but like if yeah, I'd love to know.
I
what
mean,
was the light switch moment where you're like, you know what? This I've been sold a lie. This legacy shit, all of this stuff is bullshit, you know.
my answer to this is that I don't think there's one single catalyst event. I think it's like I'm sure everyone is the same with that. Like in my case, like we're a relatively middle class family. Like I was exposed to sickness and death at a young age, and then throughout life, I've just kind of like I've seen things that make me think, you know what, that regular path isn't for me. Like when I started working, I worked for an IT support. And I remember being 18, taking this job, and my boss at the time had been at the company like 25 years. And it was just
Yeah,
like, I'm 18 years old. I can't fathom what it would be like to stay at that company for 25 years.
yeah,
And anyway, I stayed there for 5 years or so, and my boss still works there.
mm.
And what he must be at like 35 years, now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like, just like doesn't get more. I
yeah.
just don't know how
Boring.
someone can commit that, right?
Yeah,
And also, like, I think that just in general, like this concept of staying working for a company isn't as safe as it used to be. You're like
mm.
betting on them making the right decisions in a very aggressively changing climate. I just don't think that the retirement dream is real. I think you have to create that yourself.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, like just a mixture of these things and seeing other people's experience.
Yeah,
I mean, I worked at a lot of companies and I've seen the layoffs. I've seen I'm personally never been a target of it, but
yeah,
just seeing like big groups of people being laid off, all of this stuff, kind
yeah.
of just like gives you a big trust issues around working for a regular company. So then you kind of just start slowly grinding your way into exiting that path.
So what was the first thing you did? Like when you're like, I gotta go on my own, I gotta figure this out. What was the first business you did?
My first approach to it was contracting, since logically contracting
Mm,
makes sense, and IT recruitment in the UK is super lucrative, so really high daily rates, and just like I thought this would make me happier because much more money,
yeah.
and just generally like you can work 6 months of the year, you can do a 6 month contract, stop,
Mm,
take 6 months off, do another contract, and you're still earning like way above what the average family is earning. So my intention
okay.
was that I thought this would help. Turned out I hated that just as much.
Yeah,
So I tried to contracts the same,
yeah.
same both times. I really disliked it.
Contracting what? If you don't mind me asking.
Doing back end development.
Okay, back in development. All right.
It pays well, and like I'm
Yeah.
not super passionate about it, but I'm good at it, so it was a
Mhm.
logical thing to do. And it
Yeah.
was always my backup plan that I could go and do daily rate contracting. And COVID made this really easy because you
Yeah.
could do contracts in London, but you could be in a really low cost of living part of the UK.
Mhm.
So anyway, you start filling up the bank account with these really high monthly retainers you're getting. Um, and you realize, you know what, like I still hate this. I just hate it. I hate it just as much. And I'm literally doing this 6 months so I can take 6 months off at the other side. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, then after you get enough money in the company, you realize, oh, I could just keep paying myself a salary, but I don't necessarily have to work for someone. I just drop my living costs way down, and yeah, that's the epiphany moment, where if you need to top up the bank account, it's okay. You just go back to contracting. You do 6 months, but that 6 months isn't off anymore. You're not going to go play golf. You're going to
Yeah.
go grind, so you don't have to do the next 6 months going back to someone's company.
Love it. Uh, so did you at any point offer like was this SEO service stuff that just this recent trial, or did you do it
I've
at
been
a
doing SEO for about 2 years. I never did it professionally,
okay.
but I come from a very long background of reverse engineering, breaking into
Mhm.
websites, just tinkering with stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
literally built for the stuff. And then when I kind of got my teeth into it, like at that time, we had launched a product. It was about 6 months old. We are trying to market, finding our feet and
Mhm.
making it work. And yeah, one of the blog posts we wrote take off, like just
Mhm.
started ranking first everywhere. And then like the whole fucking business changed, like all the
Mhm.
graphs start going up and you start to see,
Yeah.
oh wait, this is a really powerful thing. And like you think the volume is low, but then it just starts fucking working.
Yeah.
So I remember like trying to consume every bit of knowledge I could on the topic.
Yeah.
And if you're learning computer programming language, it's really easy. You go get the book, you go watch whatever, you do however you want to do,
Mhm.
and like the answers are clear. It's binary. It's right or it's wrong.
Mhm.
Whereas this, it wasn't the case. There were so many influencers, so many people talking, but so little substance and so little backing of anything, right?
Mhm.
So only logical approach to that is okay, I'm going to consume every bit of information everyone influential seems to offer.
Mhm.
And so, I'd go through the YouTube videos, I'd consume
Yeah, yeah.
everything, I'd read all the guides, I'd read all the news stories.
Mhm.
But then you start to see the same person repeating the same message over and over again. And you're like, oh, wow, so I've actually run out of knowledge that that person can share with
Yeah,
me. Like,
yeah, yeah.
so then you'd move on to the next one, and then eventually you'd get to a new one, and he'd only be sharing what you heard from like 5 people ago.
Mhm.
So like just completely ran out of information. And it seems like an industry that changes so rapidly that just no one necessarily knew the answers. So
Yeah.
yeah, the only way is just like super aggressive. How does this actually work? I just started treating like the search engine like a black box and just aggressively monitoring what was going on. And that's how I found myself in the Reddit game so early. I mean, nowadays there's a
Mhm.
lot more hype on Reddit, a lot of Reddit agencies.
Yeah.
For me, like it was a big catalyst of early growth in our SaaS. We like commented on an old thread like 3 years
Yeah.
ago, and it still sends us customers. It's wonderful.
Amazing.
Um, but then I started to realize like, oh wow, you can literally just comment on Reddit threads with like Amazon affiliate links. And then like you wake up and like all these people came in, they searched best electric lawnmower and they clicked
Mhm.
your link at the top. They pay and you get paid like $25 every time someone clicks the link and buys it. Just crazy, yeah, like
Yeah.
SEO, but like you do it in 2 minutes. And I
Uh-huh.
remember thinking back to all these influencers, like no one is talking about the fact that you don't even need to rank your website anymore. You just go into the Reddit post,
Yeah.
like comment a link, it's
Yeah.
a straight Amazon affiliate link and it works.
Amazing.
And yeah, after that, it was no turning back. Then I'm just consuming everything.
Yeah, you're like this, like, how do people find things? Like, so what is your take on this? Like, I think it's stupid, but like, I want to hear what your take is on chat is killing search.
I mean, like, I really I heard a good quote that I generally parrot. It's like you're not going to get AI to do a plumbing for you, right? So like you still have to search for a plumber somewhere. And like
Yeah.
in that search engine, that is going to be a gameable system. So like maybe the information we retrieve and the way we retrieve it is going to change fundamentally. But then there's still all these core businesses that need to be solved. Like SaaS is a great example of that because they
Yeah.
search a problem they're trying to solve. And maybe it's informational, but then you push them to actually solving it. Or maybe it's like straight bottom with the funnel and like you literally can rank your homepage there. And like AI
Yeah.
is not disrupting this. Um, it's only
That's
going to
yeah.
be the way it recommends and the way people search it changes. But I would say this that 10 years of marketing experience gives you no edge in the like the way these things change. Like if
Yeah.
people start shifting to something else, all that previous experience they had, apart from like copywriting and like a general understanding of marketing, their bag
Hmm.
of SEO tricks are dead, and then
Hmm.
new tricks emerge. And so like there's just so much room. I really don't worry about it. I feel like people really underestimate that it's actually a massive opportunity. It's not a negative thing.
I agree with you. It's just exactly how to have the chat basically pull your stuff up
Yeah.
as information or as
Which
especially
I've done a lot of
when
experimenting with, and these systems are so much dumber than Google's, like so much dumber. So we're in a
yeah,
really early stage of them. They don't know when you're lying to them. You can easily pollute their context. Just generally, like they're much easier to cheat than Google.
yeah, I agree. Like I like the hype because as an aside, I don't know if I'm gonna keep this in the thing, but like you don't want to discuss any business, so I'm just trying to go with the flow of the conversation, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, you just got the mic
Uh,
back on.
but
Yeah, I
you
mean, I'm
don't.
happy to discuss like the intricacies of it, but I just don't necessarily want to say the name. I always laugh like when it's founders, they're like, "Oh yeah, look at my business," like shoving it down your throat, and then when it's SEOs, like, "Oh yeah, I operate a business on the internet." No, sorry, I don't share the niche.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's a bit cliche, but yeah, it's
yeah.
like
No, I
it's
know,
too
but
easy to attack people. That's the
uh,
biggest reason people don't
I
do
know,
it.
but it's just it's gonna like it's hard not to share with these questions because they're very product focused and stuff. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
so so I'm just gonna
Just ask your questions, and I will skirt around as I need to be. And if you want me to go deeper, then tell me, and I'll try my best.
you started this business, right? Like as like you were saying, you were contracting, and then you started this business that you don't want to disclose. But what was like? Can you tell the story of your first sale?
Yeah, of course. So
Yeah.
like maybe the origin of the idea too, like not clean. I generally don't care about niche or product. I care about, in fact, I want there to be competitors. If there's not competitors, it means I've got to teach people how this niche works. Like,
Hmm.
so in this case, some guy was selling a company
Yeah.
who I then built a competitor of. Like at that point, I understood what his revenue was doing. I could analyze how his channel was working roughly. So yeah, it made sense to try and compete with him. First sale came from his bad reviews. I went into his reviews. I found like a negative one, and there was an image of the guy that
Yeah.
left the review and only a first name. So I reverse image searched it, and I found him on LinkedIn. So I reached out to him, and and then we jumped on a call, and I had a sale before we even wrote any code. And it
Amazing.
was like in complete contrast to everything I had done before that because I finally went sales first, and it worked super well.
Yeah. That's great. So you were like, let me pick something that exists. You went looking for, ideas, I guess, from acquisition sites, or how did you
Yeah,
find
I was on
the
like Flipper and
yeah.
Acquire
So
and all these ones, you
yeah.
know.
So you find this thing, you're like, what? They're making how much? And you're like, I can get all of that, basically.
Yeah, I know.
And
And I mean, the guy was doing like 2 grand a month. It was not like this
mhm,
millionaire business, but I was seeing like, okay, this looks just easy, you know, like it looks
yeah,
like just a place I can walk into and, disrupt a bit there.
I love it. And you just started building. You're like, because I have a question, which is like, what are your superpowers? But you already said, you consume things to the point of high proficiency, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like I jumped on the call with this guy, right? Like I hadn't wrote any code yet. I had
Yeah,
like a rough idea. Okay, I know what the product looks like because it already exists. And
yeah,
so I said to him, like, okay, talk me through your bad review. Like, why are you leaving a bad review? And he's like, it's shit because it breaks all the time and it deletes all my data and like the
yeah,
general stuff that you love to hear about your competitor.
yeah,
Uh, and then he went on to tell me, and also like my company can't pay for it because it doesn't have this feature. And it was like encryption, they want their data to be encrypted because they deem it sensitive. And I was like, that's wonderful insights, because that means day one, I can build encryption, I can onboard this guy, and
yeah,
like the competitor doesn't even have this ability to compete in that way. So like I have this insight, this competitive advantage. But then I took it a step further. The guy that sold the company,
yeah,
I reached out to him on LinkedIn as well and was like, hey, let's jump on a call. So like
yeah,
then I start speaking to the guy that had been in the industry for 5 years.
uh-huh,
He couldn't disclose some stuff because of NDA, but
yeah,
really great insight. And I mean, like, he had no reason to talk to me, but I thought, let me take a punt. He might say yes, and he
right,
did. We had an hour call, and nothing better to speak to the bloke that left the industry you're in and was in it for
yeah.
5 years. That's the
That's
expert.
great. Yeah, that's awesome. And then like after the bad review, he's like, I'll buy your product whenever it's ready. Because
Yeah,
he told you exactly how his company buys the product.
tell me exactly how they buy, what they need to buy,
Yeah,
and that they will buy, and they even chased me on a release date.
that's amazing. And how big was that contract?
Not big. We
Like
used them
how
as early pricing. It was
okay.
like $45 a month or something, like nothing
Okay.
crazy. And they
So you
paid
didn't
by
do per
quarter.
seat or
We did per seat, but like
okay.
wasn't a big team.
Okay.
And we charge a base rate per seat, right?
Yeah.
But like for us, it was more about will someone actually pay us for this? Because I mean, up until that
Mhm.
moment, no one had paid me for nothing. I built a few projects over the years. I never really successfully monetized them. Maybe a bit of ads here and there, but nothing
Yeah.
crazy. So managing to get a sale before even the code was written and like get that
And it's like
insight.
$500, $500 a year. It's not nothing,
Exactly,
right?
it's not nothing. And this is a real business. And I mean, they
Yeah.
told us delusions of like they're going to grow, and like to this
Yeah.
day they haven't grown. And it's like
Yeah.
you start to learn, you get a sense for
Uh-huh.
it nowadays. Oh, people are going to blow a bit of smoke up your
Yeah.
ass.
Yeah. 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 That's great. And like that was secure. After you launch, what was like the next thing you did to get another sale?
So like that deal took ages to close, despite them saying yes. Then we started hitting immediate bureaucracy.
Yeah.
But at that time, we had already gone and posted on some Reddit threads, like because they were ranking on the keywords we were targeting. And then
Yeah.
before that sale managed to close, we got another sale, like
Yeah.
completely inbound. Never spoke to the guy. It was B2C, not B2B. And at
Yeah.
that time, we were doing like B2B, B2C,
Uh,
freemium. Anyone,
yeah.
please come use our product. Really
Hmm.
desperate for users.
Hmm.
So you try and appeal to everyone.
Hmm.
And yeah, then I was like, oh fuck me, someone else just paid this as well. Like this
Yeah.
is actually something. Like let's double down on this. And
Yeah.
yeah, so we spent about 3 months building the product out, and then we stopped working on it. And every week there was more and more users coming, always new users coming. And this is freemium, right? So a lot of junk users,
Yeah.
but businesses and just like I was not actively shouting from the rooftop, come try this thing. People were just coming inbound, they were trying it, they were
Hmm.
using it. Um, and yeah, like that was for us, it was like, yeah, at that point, we definitely have a product. Um,
Yeah. So
And
is
yeah,
the free
just
is
refinement from there.
yeah, what's your take on freemium? Like, would you
Don't
recommend?
do it. Don't do it. Freemium is the worst thing ever. Like,
Yeah,
do you get the worst kind of users? You get genuine hate mail from some of these people, especially freemium where it's B2C possible as well as B2B. Like in my case, like 90% of my inbound leads would be B2C. And they would
yeah,
be freemium and they will never pay. And if they do pay, you're not going to get them at a price point that makes sense. Like you have to do so many of those users for it to pay off.
yeah.
Um, so we killed freemium about 3 months ago, and
Okay.
great choice.
Would you recommend it for people who start or
No, I think it's just a good place to hide because you're afraid to sell. You put freemium
yeah,
because you don't believe in what you're selling, and so you think, let me lower the barrier of entry, and that will
yeah,
make people use the product, and then I can maybe convince them to pay. And it's like you start getting feedback from the wrong people because they don't pay you, and the ones that are the worst people they complain the loudest. So the feedback you hear is not necessarily aligned with what will make you successful.
yeah,
Um, I just think that in fact, not only should you not do freemium, mostly you should almost not even build the product. Landing page first, fake
yeah,
door, and just see if someone will pay you.
yeah. And have you tried that?
Have I tried doing fake door landing page?
Yeah,
Yeah, I did it. I mean, we tried the Reddit model, like to monetize it a couple of ways, right? So in
yeah,
all cases, it was like me behind the scenes writing
yeah,
code after the fact. Like, okay, let's
yeah,
say we can do this. First, we were selling reports, for example,
yeah,
and okay, we just put a buy button, a strike buy button on the site, and then when they come through, I get a notification on my phone, and I say, okay, I go hand build this report because like
yeah,
if I get snowed under doing this by hand, that's
yeah,
great. That means I've got a business. So now I've got a
yeah,
problem. I can go and solve it. Whereas, like, probably going and writing the code early is not the right choice.
yeah. No,
So I think I
it's what?
was going to say we pivoted to Reddit 8 model like 4 times,
Yeah,
and we always launched without writing any code, without building any processes. And each time
yeah.
we got sales because we obviously had something we weren't quite getting where we needed to be, but we were always getting sales.
I feel like it's such a high level move. Like it's not something that somebody who doesn't know how to write these style posts on Reddit can go on and be like, oh, I'm gonna do a landing page first, website deal.
Yeah, like
Would you agree or
I
not?
think with Reddit it's a bit tough because like if you're doing like I'm the founder of this and I made this thing,
Mhm.
you're going to get a lot of tire kickers, and also like if you're not selling something you're not necessarily learning at that stage, and it's
Yeah,
like it's a really noisy channel in terms of like you're going to get a lot of traffic and you don't know if they're not converting because they're just not the right target market. So
yeah,
if you can do that in a slightly more targeted way, you'll probably have a better understanding of is this working, is this not working. In my case, I was doing it with Twitter mostly, right? Like my
yeah.
messaging was around like how to be a scumbag on Reddit, and then
Hmm.
like also I can be a scumbag on Reddit for you.
Hmm.
Um, and that worked really well. They it's like a consultant sales model, right? Like they see how it works, you teach them, but then they realize, you know what, I don't want to fucking do that myself, so let me pay someone else to do it.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Um,
it's I don't know. Like, cause I see people preach that and I always get like recoil. I'm like, what you're suggesting is something that not your average, aspiring entrepreneur can pull off. They
yeah,
barely know what a market is, like the technical understanding of a market. Now you're telling them, go figure it out, like do this landing page, market it in the right channel, target the right people. And it's like, but when you say it, I'm like, hell yeah, like,
I would say this: it doesn't get easier when you have the product. You just
yeah,
wasted the time to build it. If you've got
okay,
a product, like just because you have it doesn't make it easier to market. Like it's
I
the same.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
At least that's my
Uh,
learning of many failures.
I like it, yeah, because these questions are mostly like, who are you serving? You're not gonna say that, right? Because
I mean, I can talk like lightly about it. I'm happy to talk about it. Like mostly B2B. Now we're
yeah,
chasing larger enterprise. Like so,
yeah,
we want 15 seats and up ideally, but we will take lower.
yeah,
We're working on features that correspond with that aspiration. Some more
hmm,
enterprisey style features.
yeah, yeah,
Niche. Mostly just like big, large organizations. Like we don't really have a very clear persona. We are starting to get a sense of it now with
yeah.
more and more customers, but we have a very generalist product, so we get
And
a
what's
lot
the
of
size
noise.
of your business right now, like in terms of number of customers or number of
We have
seats?
about we have about 85 customers. and we average like, oh, I don't know. I think average revenue per customer is like 30. So like we're not crazy big, We've still
So
got a
30 is
long way
what,
to
like
go.
6 seats, 3 seats?
We decided to stop selling per seat directly and start bundle seating. So you cannot buy a seat of, like, if you're small, you have to buy seats in packages. So like a seat,
Okay.
5 seats, 15 seats, 30 seats. Then if you're on
Okay.
31, you can go pay as you go. And the reason
Yeah.
is simple. Like we had so many issues with people counting the seats, and then they would like log in on the
Uh-huh.
same devices and all this. Whereas if you give them five, they say,
Yeah.
well, there's three of us using it now. How do we get two more people on it? How do we get the extra value out of it? And
Uh,
when they're at 6 and 7 seats, but they're still paying on the five package, you can send them an email and say, like, look, you're currently over the allowance of your plan, but no worries. If you get to eight, let's talk. But at seven, it's not an issue. Stay there. And then by the time
yeah.
they get to eight, now you're a nice guy. You gave them something free, and they're more than
Yeah.
happy to pay that uplift.
I love it. You should have been on the call yesterday. Like we did the Building Public 3.0 calls. I'm bringing those back. And one of the guys, Vlad, he's building like a real estate contracting kind of log app. And we were talking about that, like seat pricing and what kind of pricing or whatever. And this package, seat pricing is such a good idea because it does create this adoption thing where it's like,
Yeah.
let's fill it up. Oh, I got 2 seats. I got you, like, whatever.
I
So
think if you can, try and not price per seat if it helps your growth, but you need to have another metric what you can price based upon.
yeah,
Like if that makes sense. And in my case, I don't have it.
yeah.
So the only logic for me is to price by seat. But if I could price a different way, I really think I would because like especially in B2B, you want adoption as wide as you can get it. And then if your
Mhm.
pricing hinders your adoption, I don't think that helps you.
I agree. I think you should definitely figure that out. And if you can find a different usage model, because what you don't want is the 10,000 seat company using your thing for $20, right? Because that's
Exactly.
just
Right.
gonna piss you off, right? So that
Yeah.
you got to figure it out. But like, I like this idea as like just whatever, a tool in the tool belt, not necessarily like the way to
And
do.
And I
Uh,
read something a while back about how to deal with account sharing. It was talking about the fact that if users log in and they see the same thing, you probably shouldn't be pricing by seat. But if they log in and they see something different, then it makes sense to price per seat, right?
yeah,
And in my case, they log in and they see the same thing.
yeah,
Slowly trying to work on making that not the case, but in a
yeah.
sense, that is where we are today, and thus we're going against that mold of pricing per user. But bundling really helped us. So if I'd say if you are
Mhm.
struggling to price per user, you should definitely try some bundles.
Yeah, but that's the whole beauty of B2B SaaS is they like, especially if you want to sell it. Is that
Yeah,
your next step? Like you think at some point you're gonna be like, I've built this to a certain point where it's
I think
appealing
that.
to an acquirer.
I I don't want to sell something that I think that I can add value to.
Okay.
Um, and when I'm past that point where I think I'm not able to add any more additional value to this, and like the growth rate is this, then I'll make
Mhm.
that decision at that time. But like also, if you get to that point, often you can just not even touch it. A lot of the time, I mean, I owned this product in particular for 3 years, but active work is probably about a year to a year and a half.
Yeah.
A lot of idle time in between where you work on other stuff. And like that's what I like about these things. Like there's not this,
Mm,
there's a lot of software that you have to keep adding features, and there's some software where it can be complete. And this is the software I like.
I agree. I think this rabbit hole, like we were talking about this with like Caravan Notes and Notion and all of that, right? You can have a vision and say, no, this is complete. I don't need to have the Kanban board and the stupid shit that all like I don't know. Notion did, I forget what it was, the latest feature, right? It was completely stupid, but it was like, I forget what it was. And then I was like, oh, next, they're gonna do like Notion standing desks and and Notion chairs, office chairs, and it's like, what the hell? Like they lost the plot completely. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And once you get a complete product like that, right? It's self-reinforcing because like the SEO is just gonna keep pushing it up to the top.
Yes.
The reputation is gonna, so you accumulate all these kind of advantages of scale. That'll, yeah, you just sit back. You're like, I live in Thailand. I got
Well,
my
I
two
mean,
houses.
just
Yeah,
because you're sat back on product doesn't mean you're sat back on marketing. You're always looking to see what's working, what's converting. You're watching the session recordings. You're seeing how people are interacting. I would say this, like, I built auto pay, like Stripe's self-service billing 3 times because we
Yeah.
pivoted pricing so many times, and
Yeah.
each time it was a fucking nightmare. Like to rip
Yeah.
it out and to like add the changes that made sense. So the fourth time I said I'm not doing it again. I took out
Yeah.
all of the pricing and I did invoicing by hand for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Every time someone wanted to pay, they had to email me. They spoke to me. It was painful. I
Yeah.
would manually add the rows in the
Is
database. I
Stripe
would manually.
that much of a pain in the ass?
It's just a pain to pivot around, when your pricing ain't quite clear. And then you
Okay.
have to add like all the upgrade states
Yeah.
and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And I just really, I felt like it was getting in my way to be
Hmm.
flexible and understand what's working. So then I
Yeah.
started negotiating all these custom deals. It was like a big company. I was like, all right,
Mm.
just pay me $1,000 a year and I'll let you have as many
Yeah.
seats as you like. And then next year we'll renege. And if you
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
it, great. And if you haven't, then
Yeah.
we'll adjust. And like
Uh-huh.
doing it, all these custom deals. And doing that really helped us learn like, okay, great. Firstly, I'm speaking to customers. They got no choice but to speak to me. They want to become customers, they have to converse with me.
Mm.
So you're always learning. You have meetings with these people, and like
Yeah.
you just can't hide away from it. And now, in the new year, we finally released autopay. But now we're so confident about the way it works, because we did it
Mm.
by hand for so long. We pivoted around by hand, and that really helped. So just that low, just try and speak to as many more people as you can, like especially in that customer base. I know it's like parroted that you should speak to your customers, but I still think people don't do it enough. Probably I don't do it enough even still.
And when you speak to customers, what are you like? What are you looking to get? Let's say the first call, right? Hey, Ollie, this shit is great. I want to buy it.
Yeah, I mean, often I would join a call and like it's if it's
Yeah.
big companies, right? So I call it like a lot of these people are professional time wasters, like they're
Yeah.
in a big company, they know the hustle, they want to join meetings. It
Yeah.
gets them through the day. So I'm more than
Uh-huh.
happy to be that guy on the meeting with them,
Yeah.
and it
Because
makes
you have
the
this
deal more
customer
easy
service
to
background
close.
too, so you're like,
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
And I don't mind to jump on the call,
Mhm.
and we talk about the niche that I operate in, and
Mhm.
it's a really boring niche. So uh,
Yeah.
I'd say by the time they already join the call, they just want to know there's a real human. That's all they care about,
That's
especially with
it.
the AI stuff. They just
Yeah.
want to talk to someone and make sure that when stuff goes bad, there's someone that is responsive that they can deal with.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's the biggest thing I learned. Like, just be a human, be approachable, and make it clear that like you don't have to be a massive company. You just have to be giving them faith that when stuff goes bad, that you are going to answer their emails and you will jump on a call with them and you're not afraid to do all these things. And that is, especially in B2B, that is the thing that gets the sales. It isn't even about price.
Yeah.
If they care about the pain point, and they see
Yeah.
that
They
you
don't care
will save them
exactly.
when it goes bad,
Yeah.
they will pay you anything, within reason, of course.
Yeah, within reason. And yeah, most people just want the headache to go away, and if they can afford it, they're like, here you go, bro. Like they don't even think about it. Uh
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
yeah, no, it's so great, like because it's like so it's either you it sounds like because you're like, hey, maybe at some point I want to buy these companies
So we
and
completed our first acquisition. We have done it now, and
yeah,
yeah, it worked out wonderfully.
that's great.
I
It's
break
just
into a lot of companies every year, right? And I
yeah,
would say the biggest issue I have is that they are so difficult to contact. Like
yeah,
you would believe that if you have someone's entire customer database, like when you emailed them, they would like be responsive. But often I find that I have to cold email, then I have to like go on LinkedIn, find all the executives and
yeah.
add them all on LinkedIn, then start guessing their email addresses and cold emailing them. It probably takes 5 to 6 touch points to even get these people to respond to me when I've broken in.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
how do you
like
break in? Like, is it like common security things that you kind of are in the know about and you kind of just test
I
it out?
just
Like,
poke. I
yeah,
just poke. I see something and it piques my curiosity. Or how does that work? And you start digging in. I love to read the Webpack bundles. The code where they think that no one is reading it. I'm definitely reading it. I'm reverse engineering their APIs. I'm looking for anything inside just to see how it's working.
and what's
Um,
like the common things that are like unsecure? Because like I'm building an app, right? And I'm thinking, oh, Firebase, if I put Firebase auth in front of everything, I'm kind
yeah.
of covered.
So I broke
But
into a lot of Firebase
yeah,
setups. So I can tell
yeah,
you that in a lot of cases,
yeah,
misconfiguration. You use some really complex tool, and you don't necessarily understand all the pitfalls with it, and as a result, you shoot yourself in the foot. And maybe you get away with it for many years, but eventually someone will go through your code and they'll see it, and then it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a bit too late. So like
and
the
and
biggest
you'd like
the biggest
download the
answer is
code. because it's like it's obscured, but it's not there, right? If it's a
Uh,
web
you
app.
you uh, you run it in the debugger.
Uh-huh,
You see what the network request looks like. You use some
uh-huh,
breakpoints to try and help. Sometimes they leave the the source maps in, like
yeah,
so. Then you can basically read the whole front end, like just like you have the source code.
yeah.
And when that happens, then it's easy, right?
And
And then you just like
yeah.
go on, Karen.
I'm just thinking like, how was this not like? Did you ever do this as a business, like penetration testing and stuff like that, or not really?
I tried the bug bounty stuff, but like I found that it's really competitive, and
Yeah.
also like the companies are just really scummy to work with. Like they're gonna
Uh-huh.
like, you know,
Yeah.
I did a lot of bugs on Buffer when I was doing bug bounties. You know, Buffer, the
Yeah.
social media scheduling
Yeah.
company. Yeah, when we were traveling Vietnam, I was really going all out. Like my full-time job was just attacking that company. I was reading their GitHub. I was seeing like all the subdomains that are up and like
Mm,
just like daisy chaining exploits. I got in a couple of times, you know.
yeah.
And they paid me like a few $100, you know, here and there,
Mm,
paid for some of my flights. I don't really care about the money side of it. It's just a curiosity. The same reason I like SEO so much. I just
yeah.
love to dig and just try and understand how it's working and put that model in my head together of exactly how it works.
I just cause feel like it's so scary for people to be like, what do these hackers know? Because it's complete black box, right? And it's like, am I risking anything? And I know that some people offer these services. Like I remember I sent you this profile of this dude who was doing like security, and he did just penetration testing. Pay him price. He tries to break
Yeah.
in. He's like, "You're good to go," and or you're not good to go. And I feel like that can be a good service, especially for like seed stage company, right? Like you raise a seed round, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, now it's serious, and you have the money to pay 100 grand for security, like security
Yeah, for
testing.
sure. And that, especially if they're B2B, that will be a contingent for some contracts to close. You know, they want to see an annual pen test.
Yeah.
Um, but as an industry, like I'm not super. I like the sport of it, and I feel like if I start to get paid too aggressively for it, then I won't enjoy it as much. So, you know, I
Mm,
kind of do it on the side. And if you see
yeah.
my Twitter nowadays, I'm mostly like tracking how people are ranking with hacked pages and then
Yeah.
reverse engineering how the pages are hacked, you know? So like I can do this because I do a lot of SEO and I also do a lot of hacking into companies. So
Yeah.
like that perfect skill set together. Um,
It's so amazing. Like I just wish I can like download the knowledge, but it's just I know it's so much knowledge that I to bother going into that is just like not gonna. But I would love like if
yeah.
you wrote a book, about security and whatever it is you have, because it's not security, right? It's it's almost like detective work with code.
Yeah, I mean, like I just want to get that mental model and those flowcharts in
Yeah,
my head. And once I do, it's like, well, then where is the weak points? And I mean, I've been doing this since a very young age. You know, I was cheating
yeah,
on computer games and like
yeah.
just generally, I mean, the internet was a different place when I was
Mm,
young. It's not the same now. People go to jail, you know, for all sorts of stuff now.
yeah,
And back then, the internet was really a wild west. So you could just really learn, and all pages, you know, you could view the
mm,
source code of them. It was just a different internet. So like just many years of experience of knowing like plus as a developer, you just know where people are lazy. You know, which really helps.
yeah. Because I think about that, and I feel like a lot of. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, is simplicity usually the best way to secure your stuff? Is to kind of like make the data flow super simple so that you can kind of track it
Just
and
understanding that client server architecture is the main failing people make of understanding like if data is coming from the client, it's inherently untrustworthy and thinking through that thought process. And then like vice versa, like understanding like, oh, if I send a URL to an API endpoint, what is my exposure? What's my risk? And like I know I've exploited that exact vulnerability hundreds of
yeah,
times now. So I know all the variants of if you take a URL, I'm going to do these various things and see if I can get away with something. And if I can't, probably there's nothing there for me. So like
yeah,
eventually you start to see all of the like there's only so many ways an API can look. There's only so many ways a web app can look, you know? So you
yeah,
just start to see the same mistakes over and over again. But it's normally always down to the fact that they trust the client in some way or they have a misconfiguration on the server. Like the worst
yeah,
one I've seen, especially for Firebase, is I was browsing their landing page. I
yeah,
right clicked an image, open a new tab,
Mm.
And then I was like, this is a straight Firebase URL. Let me
Yeah.
see if they turn directory listings off. So I took
Yeah.
the image out of the path, and then I could literally just see every file inside the Firebase bucket, which they
Yeah.
also happen to store client data inside. So then, like, you
Uh
immediately have all customer data.
yeah, because they have
And
like
there was like
PDFs or whatever
PDF,
documents. Yeah.
spreadsheets, all of that
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And that's
But
because that's a
that
misconfiguration.
it also seems like laziness because it's literally just putting like an odd thing so that only that user can access it, and it's
But
one line of code.
but if they could have been in business for 10 years and they could have had it right for 9 of those years, but the problem they have is that in this like situation, your low hanging fruit, like once you find it, it's the end for them, you know? So like all they have to do is make one mistake. Whereas as someone who's trying to compromise these systems, like you can just infinitely poke until you find something.
Uh-huh.
And the bigger the company gets, the more tech they have, the more complex it gets. Like as we see, like with all these subdomains, I'm finally getting hacked. Like
Yeah.
because they have so many subdomains, they're just not ordering it. So like as they start to grow and organization complexity grows, that's when they get vulnerable to this stuff.
So it's so fascinating, like
It's a wild world of people's data is really not secure as they think. Um,
and it's so like whoever designed API requests and responses and whatever, like I want to shoot them in the face because it's so stupid. Like it's like like front end is so easy because it's like boom, you do that, it happens. Like this kind of back end architecture, I don't know why it's not as easy as like front end stuff.
I mean, there's just a lot to worry about, I guess, is the problem, right? And also, like, I guess with front end, often it's like a single build with a ton of npm packages. But with the back end, it's often split into a ton of different things. Like you have the database, you have maybe a few services, then maybe a few more services you put on, and then like maybe their engineers are working in isolation, so they're not thinking about the way two services interact. And like, so
Yeah,
if I find a vulnerability in one, it might not be enough. But then if I find a different vulnerability in another, I can
yeah,
chain those together and get something really serious.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's no way that they have that mental model at that time because they're very much living in their lane and managing their service. And you're
Also, that's
coming
kind
at
of
it
like a
like from a different
downfall.
way.
Yeah. Sorry.
And that you're kind of coming at it from a different way. You know, you don't care about their organization or their complexity. You're just saying
Mm,
like, there's these endpoints and they take these parameters and I can go poke at
mm.
them and this happens.
No, it's fascinating. It's like I think there's an opportunity there. Like there's definitely so much money in the security space, right? And like
For sure.
how companies secure their stuff, and it's I need to definitely learn more about that. Like at this point, I'm just doing every communication with the server is like, is this the authorized user? you know but I can see that if I do build out all these features that we talked about before the call, I'm introducing so many more
Yeah.
things, right? And if
Sure.
one of them breaks, one of them has access to everything, and I can see
And
how
if
it
I'm
can.
coming at your system, I don't need the complexity. I just see this endpoint looks risky as fuck. This endpoint
Mhm.
looks risky as fuck. Let's go look at them. And I don't care about anything else that you're doing. And so you don't, for me, because I'm laser focused on that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can easily get in that way, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I totally get it. It's like a graphic designer looking at the logo. They're like, there's the tension here. It doesn't care about anything. There's just like, boom. That's that's
Yes, yeah, for sure.
that's the
And
problem.
even
Yeah.
like one Firebase config, I remember like I was reading the client-side JavaScript, and then I discovered like you could just query the whole Firebase database from the front end. And that was the first time I discovered Firebase actually. And I was like, what the fuck is this? So you're telling me the client can just run queries directly on the database? And then I start researching Firebase a little bit and I see they've misconfigured it. But then like I remember I ran the command and then my browser crashed. And I was like, why's my browser crashed? And then I realized what happened. The whole database had dumped to my memory. And it crashed
Yeah.
like Rome, you know.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part of this stuff, you know. Like you're very much in a gray area,
Mhm.
and you need to be super responsible. The
Mhm.
moment that you see, ideally before you see customer data, you need to stop. You do not continue. You do not pursue any further, and
Yeah.
then you do everything you can to act in good faith and contact the company and
Yeah.
alert them of what's gone on. And sometimes they're going to be nice, rarely.
Yeah.
Sometimes, most of the time, they're going to be very unhappy with you, and you're in dangerous territory. And sometimes you do get threats, but just about
Sounds so
being
such like
clear
a
to
weird
them,
response.
just about being clear to them that we can deal with this quietly now, and I'm just looking for you to fix this because I care about people's data, or you can make it difficult. And there's many news outlets that will happily pick up this story. So what story do
Mm,
you want? And
mm.
often that nudge of like, okay, yeah, probably this isn't worth letting this blow up. Let's fix it. And then you just don't get any response. They fix it. They don't even tell you they fixed it.
Yeah. Yeah, because
That's
it's
that's
like
the
they're
game, eh?
admitting to something, or like I don't get it. Like if someone came to me and was like, "Bro, your shit is unsecure," I'm like, "Thanks. Can you
Of
show me
course,
how to
yeah.
fix it?" You know what I mean?
I get
Thank you
those
for your
emails and I
trouble. Yeah.
respond, and mostly it's spam. But sometimes every now and then you get a really good bit of insight, and it's like, great, you're right, I missed that.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks,
So yeah,
buddy. Is there anything I can do? Can I buy you dinner? Like something?
exactly.
You
And
know?
you have a lot more compassion for that person. They're a bit surprised at why you respond in 5 minutes, as opposed to having to send 10 emails. So like everyone
Yeah.
else, they have to.
These other questions are just too product focused, and it's
Yeah, I
so
really
tempting.
ruined your format with my confidentiality requirements.
No, no, it's fine. You know, I might do them. Or do you want to just do them and cut them up? Just
Let's
for
do them, huh? I
yeah,
will go into wherever I can. Like I'm generally open about the model and how everything works. The only reason I
yeah,
don't say the niche is just because SEO. Like I'm making so many enemies right now with what I share, and like I just don't need the targeting. You know,
yeah. Yeah, let's just do the, like who are you serving? You said B2B SaaS that's like medium
B2B,
size.
typically large enterprises. We see a lot of success in the US, Germany, Japan.
Yeah.
We get a lot of agencies, but mostly we only care about big old legacy and companies, and because they don't churn. I might have to do a couple of calls with them, but it doesn't matter because they're not going nowhere once they're on.
Yeah. So yeah, once you get them, it's kind of there. And then um what are their pains? Like, you know, what are their biggest pain points that you see that
Their biggest
you
pain
kind
points are
of
just in a sense like they don't want to learn new software often, especially the big enterprises. Like if you're
Mhm.
onboarding a team of 60 people onto
Yeah.
your software, eh, there is going to be training requirements depending on the skill set of the staff. There's going to be
Yeah.
all these different things that just to even get that software even tested. Whereas my solution to the problem requires no workflows, it enhances an existing part of what they already do. So, in a sense, that we only make it better for them to communicate,
Mhm.
as opposed to saying, "Oh yeah, go use our tool, and then it will make you communicate better." Like we're very much anti that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
that's
so
why we win them.
it has to be like easy onboarding, you'd say, or
Easy onboarding, exactly,
yeah.
right? But not just and getting the activation in the team, right, is a tough one, especially in these large enterprises. They're old school, they're stuck in their ways, they don't want to do new stuff. Um, and so you can have like these advocates, but sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah.
And just having it something where like I would say this, most people don't come back to our UI. They set up the product, they never come back to our UI, which is quite a rare scenario. But for us, that
Yeah.
means success. They continue to use the tool in the background, and yeah, they forget we exist until we bill them again for the year. And most people pay by the year.
So just to kind of extract that pattern, so that people can learn from it, right? So it's not just easy onboarding, right? It's empowering, like especially if you're selling a team product, right? It's
Yep.
how do you empower, how do you make it easy for everybody to just install whatever it is you're selling and then give the power user the ability to empower everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And like in our case, it's going from one power user to everyone in the team is a power user now. If we succeed at
Uh,
that, they will never leave. And in fact, when we succeed at that, we know because they pay yearly.
yeah,
They
yeah.
can't even conceive of life without the tool anymore.
Yeah, because they're used to that workflow. They're like,
Yeah.
the thing I want is it's just there, because
Yeah.
Billy's handling it for me, So
What I would
that's
say we're
such
not doing well is right now is we are not successfully leaving that team yet. And that would be nice, especially in these larger companies, because
successfully
you've
leaving what?
got as in leaving the team. You have quite a siloed team in these big enterprises,
Hmm.
and then like ideally, once they paid you $1, you've bypassed all the bureaucracy. So in theory, you should be able to sell to other teams inside the organization,
Mm.
and that's something we can definitely do better. And that's probably the path of how we can really boost our revenue.
yeah, but then you kind of have to decode that workflow between teams
Yeah,
and
yeah,
figure
it's a
out
lot
how
harder.
to
Ideally,
make
you
it
want to find other
applicable.
teams with exactly the same setup where there's one
Mhm.
power user, and then you can kind of make them all the power user. And ideally, you want like internal advocates to push this, but so far I haven't
Yeah,
been successful at doing that.
yeah, yeah.
And I
You
try to
know, in
I
your
try to
case, it
stimulate this a little bit. I try and say like, oh, have an unlimited plan, take as many seats as you like, and like just
uh
hoping that it will bait them a bit to use it. But so far, I haven't seen that work.
yeah, in your case, it kind of that barrier is harder to cross, but in other cases, maybe there is a way where it's easily you can kind of figure out how to orchestrate between teams and kind of
Yeah,
offer that as with the same mentality of how do I just let the most concerned parties in both teams collaborate and then their teams kind of get that benefit, of that
exactly.
collaboration between those, power crazy users, right?
Yeah.
It's such a good strategy. Like, how did you think of that? Like when you built your tool, right? Was it kind of second nature to you to think,
I didn't come up
oh,
with it. The users showed me that was the way. The ones that worked, they were very clear. You would see their initial data and
yeah,
it would be like, oh, this is wonderful. And then like the team would start to use it and it was just everyone was happy. And then you would see
mhm,
other kind of users where they would come and they would have no initial data and
yeah,
they wouldn't be successful. And it was like, okay, so we're really starting to see the ones that were like are already all in on this and they just need the enhancements we offer them.
yeah,
And because we're doing like for so long all manual payment, like you just speak to everyone.
uh-huh,
Even when people are unhappy about the price, you just speak to them all and they will try and negotiate with you. They'll say, we're using this tool for X, Y, and Z. And
yeah,
even now, we get people that say it's too expensive. And I say, no worries. Go and, for a while, I used to push them to our competitor before we acquired them. And
yeah,
I knew I would do that because I knew that the competitor had big issues with data loss. And as soon as
yeah,
their data was lost, they'd come back to us because
yeah,
they would like validated they needed the
yeah,
product. But then, like,
yeah,
okay, now we want a stable one.
yeah, yeah.
We can't do that anymore. So like now there's a few variants they can do, but mostly the variants do not cut it. But every now and then I go through the motions like, why don't you use this tool? And they say, oh, I can't because of this reason. And I think to myself, that's great because I knew
Yeah.
that was the answer. And then I say, what about this tool? And he will say, I can't because of this reason. Perfect. I knew that answer as well. So like we're
Mm,
really starting to understand the landscape now.
that's awesome, bro. Like, it's just this kind of competition awareness is lacking in the community we're in, right? Like the building public community. They're all like, oh, don't care about competitors, just do your thing or whatever. And it's like, no, bro. That is like how people buy is assessing competition.
Ruthlessly pursue your competitors.
Yeah,
It's my advice. Understand everything about how they work, how their customers work, and how they
yeah.
are getting traffic, and try to dethrone them on all of those places.
I agree. I think, yeah, you should chip at everything they think is sacred, you know.
Yeah,
Be like, oh yeah, I did it better. And they're like,
sure,
what?
exactly right.
And make them be on the defensive, you know. I agree with you. Um, so imagine there's the super villain Oliver Fish, right?
Mm.
He's 100 times better than you in whatever you think is your secret sauce. Describe that super villain.
Um, I would say this, like I have access to a lot of because of the SEO research I'm doing now, I have access to a lot of things that are very, very illegal and like I will not utilize them. But if I did utilize them, I would be ranking in a lot of places
Yeah,
because you see it, right? And so like I have to work very hard not to be this person
yeah,
and just make sure like I can explain it, I can talk about it, I can try and educate, but not become that supervillain. So
yeah,
in a sense that in this in answer to your question
yeah.
directly, I would definitely skirt the rule of law a lot more if that supervillain did
And just be
exist.
like, oh, full exploitation, as much
Just
money as
straight,
possible. Just
relentless, everything. No question of what's not. It's not about what's right and wrong. I don't really believe in that in marketing so much. I just mean about what is legal and what's illegal. Um,
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Uh, but hmm,
and then just that at volume, what I'm already doing now, but using my research for bad and not necessarily for like educational purposes is what I would like to
yeah.
consider it right now.
So you have this
Um,
kind of education aspiration.
I like to educate myself, and like I like to, and when I, the problem is if I'm in, at least in this niche, there's just not good resources. You know, like
Yeah,
people say, oh, go do these things like the boring keyword research and all that shit. Like
yeah,
maybe, but we can go read a blog post on that. We don't need another influencer to tell us. Like actually, like
mm,
genuine research, and there are so few people that do it, but the ones that do, I consume everything they write.
yeah,
And I'm trying to do my best to like make this whole industry a little bit less secretive. But the supervillain version is not that. It's silence and just exploitation.
yeah. Science and exploitation. Yeah, like you like the like black hacker stuff. Like just
Because I get DMs, like telling me to shut the fuck up, stop
yeah,
sharing this stuff. I get hate, not always,
yeah,
not as much as you'd expect, but it does occur. And just like, I mean, I don't buy into it. I am active. I'm very written by some sort of moral code in this that if you break the law to do it, I will
yeah,
publicly out you. I don't care. That's your
yeah,
problem. That was your error. But if you are doing stuff that breaks Google's rules, but you are not breaking
yeah.
the law, I will not out you.
Mm,
I might write about what you're doing and I might
mm,
research it, but I'll never share your domain name. I won't share your niche because like they're trying to make money. They're making an honest, decent living.
yeah.
I don't want to step in that.
Yeah, no, it's such a interesting because like I just feel like you're just not more well known. Because I feel like if you're better known, you're like I don't know, governments want you as a consultant and stuff like that.
I don't think what I do is so complicated, but maybe I'm biased by it. But like at least I now I just like, oh, I know what stuff to type into Google search to find all of the bad shit on the internet. But
But it
yeah,
is I think it's an undervaluing of yourself. I think it's kind of like what's his face? Max Blade, the guy who like built this little, GitHub triangle thing.
fine, right, yeah, yeah.
That's the and he built it like without knowing anything about hardware, right? Just kind of same way, just passionate, consumed a lot, tried it out, built it out, sold it, did a good job selling it, whatever. And he still thinks he did nothing, right? Like, whatever,
Of
like,
course.
like
But this is
just,
this is the I mean, my therapy has taught me this is the trait of a self-improvement junkie. You never
yeah.
sit down and celebrate. You always move forward. You're just outright consuming everything you can and moving on, and there's never a time to celebrate.
But it's
And
not even
like
celebration. It's just a matter of opportunity maximization,
I
right?
think it's like what is it that effect where it's like the more you know about something, the less you know about it. So people that know nothing think they're the experts, and people that are experts think they are not the
Yeah, the
experts.
Dunning-Kruger effect.
The
Well,
Dunning-Kruger effect,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that is probably at play here. Like because I have not been in this industry long,
yeah,
so like I'm not super like I'm not to say like I believe I'm really good at it. I just try to share what I learn, and if you hate it, that's okay. If you like it, that's
yeah.
good too.
But yeah, I don't know.
But I would say this, like,
Because there's this targeting where you can kind of maybe I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, right? But like, let's say you find a country, right?
yeah.
And every country has like a minister of defense or something to do with security of their country, some data guy who's whatever. And if you do it for countries, I feel like they'd want you as a consultant.
Maybe, but I have very much come to terms with the fact that I'm not a good person to exchange my hours for something. I very much
Yeah.
need to just be I like this in the shadows, lots of little things. No one really if someone looks at one of your products, they think, "Oh, that probably doesn't make that much money." And like
Mhm.
they have no idea about what it's actually doing. Like
But
I
can't
really
you
like
wrap
this
that
stuff.
into a product? Like I would love a
Maybe.
product where I can just create a user because that's where most of the crazy shit happens is with some sort of auth, right? So if I can create a user for let's call it the Oliver Fish app, right, and give it access to my Caravan notes, make a user for it, and it does all that, like whatever, the infinite pinging of all the endpoints and all this stuff, and then comes back and be like, hey, you have a vulnerability here, fix it.
I mean, there's tools like this. I think that industry is probably going to become much more sophisticated with AI agents. It seems like a great place for AI agents to disrupt, if I'm honest, because like
Yeah,
it's tons of required knowledge for all these different little things, and so
yeah,
that makes sense that custom agents would be good at that. Um, I think it's just like it's not boring enough for me. If does that make sense?
Not
Like I've really
boring
covered,
enough. Oh,
yeah, not boring enough. Like
like
as work to
this
do,
idea of complete product doesn't exist. It's gonna be always, you got to stay up to
it's gonna
date.
be always, but
Yeah.
and it's also like I just love this like one feature product that's mega boring. Like it's not exciting. If I had an exciting product that was doing well, I'd probably sell it. Because I just
But why
like
don't you do that? Like that is a product that the world exists, the world needs. And if you go to like 0 to 1 and
yeah,
then
so I
get,
I am I am cooking something and in this space of like this the search result research um and right now like my work on Twitter is mostly marketing for that product,
yeah,
but I don't think I will be on the good side. I feel like I'm going to be building a tool that facilitates what the new SEO is, which is like user generated content spam, like and
yeah.
rank tracking in that regard. Like I think there's a big opportunity here, and I'm like evaluating that. But I'm not necessarily seeking like this dealing with these massive long enterprise cycle contracts. Like, I'm not sure what work I need to do
Yeah.
to sell to the US government, but I'm sure it's more paperwork than I want.
Well, maybe not the US government. I'm just saying, like, for just SaaS companies, like they
Yeah.
would pay more money. Like I would have like $100 a month just to have constant monitoring of my security endpoints and all of that from, like you're saying, from like the agentic perspective. Not, I gotta go put it in my code and do all this stuff and whatever. I want it as, or is there, I don't know, maybe I'm just
I
new to
think there's
this.
a product here, but not necessarily what you're saying. I think that there is a product here that basically, when you get hacked in whatever regard and they start spamming or they start doing whatever, right? Like, do you want me to find out about it and go post on Twitter and be like, go fix this? Because I don't want to fucking deal with emailing you when you're not going to respond to me. There's so many companies getting hacked. I can't do that like personalized outreach that I do in a
Yeah,
really bad case. I definitely believe there's room that the universities in America and the US and the government agencies should all be paying someone to monitor the search results for their domain names and make sure there is no spam, because that is like the first line that you've been compromised. Um,
uh,
and I really think there would be a good marketing in monitoring this. So maybe I will search into that at some point, but
yeah.
it's not directly
But
not
you're
directly
doing
aligning
it
with my
not
goals right now.
preventatively, right? You're doing it like after the
You're doing it
compromises
after the
happen.
fact, yeah. I think,
Yeah,
and that's an important aspect of security, right? In a sense where like you're never going to be fully secure. People are going to get in, especially when there's complexity. The question is, how quickly do you respond when it happens?
that is good. But is there like anything proactive? Like, what is the most proactive thing a founder can do to make sure their shit is secure?
Regular pen tests and just system monitoring,
Yeah,
understanding how people like event logs and stuff like that. There's really not a lot you can do. Reality is if the person is sophisticated enough and they're willing to wait long enough, and you've got enough moving targets like big enterprises do, universities do, governments do. There's just so much going on. There's just no shot they have of keeping everything locked down. So I think it's
yeah,
like a mixture of all the things. Firstly, trying to prevent it, trying to catch it before it's deployed, and then finding out when we've actually been hit and like responding to that quickly.
yeah,
I think it's a multi-pronged solution. I think that especially with AI, it's going to get even worse because it's going to be so easy to compromise these systems. As
yeah,
much as the AI agents will be good for the good guys to stop the exploits, it will also be good for the bad guys to find the exploits.
yeah. It's just so fascinating for me. In your opinion, what is the most genius artist that can exist? It can be fictional.
Most genius artist. Um, I think there's something to be said for just like the most perfect marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Like not the one that got lucky, the
Mhm.
one where there was a clear understanding of what was it I watched recently? Ah, yes, the Netflix documentary on Jerry Springer.
Uh-huh.
Whatever you feel about Jerry Springer, good or bad, there
Yeah.
was this guy behind the scenes that knew exactly that people wanted degenerate shit on TV.
Uh-huh.
And like he just knew it. He knew get the wackiest people in, and he was spot on, and like that guy behind the curtain, like whether or not you think he's good or bad what he did,
Mhm.
he had a clear understanding of his customer. He had a clear knowledge of how to do everything he needed to get there. And when he
Mhm.
did, it was like perfectly validated.
Yeah,
And I think that for me, that is a kind of art I respect.
yeah, it's great.
Because
Yeah, it's
you know that is like so much grinding work behind the scenes leading up to that perfect opportunity. You know what I mean? He was in the
yeah,
right place at the right time, but he obviously worked hard before he got there. And there's
yeah,
many examples such of that.
yeah. It is. It's just amazing. Yeah. When you see that, it's like there's this what was it, WebMD? You know, at some point they were like just dominating search. Everything you search for, they'd have like, and you know, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's an SEO specific thing. I want your take on that.
I
Uh,
mean, I have a I for when I was doing the Reddit stuff, I was actively outranking WebMD
yeah,
for a
but
client. So I'm like,
it was your
I'm very aware
competition,
of
right?
it was my competition, and like I'm very. I think that there was a time maybe where it made sense to try and rank your own website, and you
Mhm.
definitely should. But now it's just like go and look what's actually working and then exploit everything you can. And like I think the stuff with WebMD will probably hold, but like there's just so much opportunity there, but people aren't looking and understanding and aren't being creative. And just like if you just become an expert of exactly how people search for whatever you're selling, and that might be Google, that might be something else, that might be, it doesn't matter. If you can just become an expert of that and go every day and look and see how it changed, see who the other players are, and just consume and consume and consume, you in theory, like it's just a matter of time before it works.
Yeah. So it's mostly with search. I know we're off the genius artist thing, but I like your answer. You know, it was just so you, you know. But so with the search stuff, it's just like, hey, you know, people are using Perplexity. Go search in Perplexity, see what Perplexity is doing,
Exactly.
reverse engineer that,
If
and
it
then kind
floods
of
your competitor, there's a reason for it. Go find out what that reason is. And you might not know, but then get some hypothesis and go and test it.
yeah,
People aren't necessarily, and I see it a lot, people aren't really willing to do the work of like failing upwards.
interesting.
And
What do you
that's
mean?
where you really learn.
What do you
Like
mean filling upwards?
you're constantly failing. You're doing like you want to do one thing, so you try 10 ways to get there, and maybe all 10 fail, but then eventually you're going to make a little bit of progress. Something's going to work, and you climb up a little bit. And then you do 10 more things, and most of them fail as well, but maybe you'll get some success, or you'll learn why they didn't work, and you'll go a bit more up and a bit more up. And it's like, I think a lot of people get attached to these success stories. They think they're going to launch like this product hunt dream that people used to
Mhm.
have. You launch on product hunt, and your life changes overnight.
All said, yeah,
I personally don't buy into this belief. Like it would be nice, but also you can just keep grinding, keep going, and it might not be an overnight success, but
Mhm.
you will start to learn, you will understand why it's not working, and yeah, eventually you get there, right?
Yeah. People give up too easily, bro.
You will give up too easily. And the worst thing is if you fail but you don't know why, then it
Mm,
was like the whole thing was wasted.
that's so true. Like there was this guy, you know, I'm not gonna say his name because he might be watching this, but he built a tool that like just blew up because he did this, you know, kind of Twitter story thing, and he just blew up. Ever like he got like whatever 3,000 followers in like 2 days or some shit like that,
Yeah,
right? And it's and that's a big problem. I think that when that happens to you early, it kind of kills your motivation because you get all that dopamine. You're like, oh my god, everybody's watching it, everybody's and then he started slugging it up. You know, the actual founder shit, not the launch or the product. Because even product hunt is a spike, and then it's you know you're
yeah, and then
down,
dice then.
you're back to the grind, right? So he started doing the grind, and I just couldn't figure it out. He was like, why am I not getting the same attention that I
Yeah.
got 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? What? And he just gave up, just disappeared.
I'd say the same thing happened to me in a way. Like my second tweet blew up, like went massive.
Yeah,
Like it was like a series of emails
yeah.
from customer support from my product. Um, and then I blew up a couple more times. And
Mhm.
majority of the good leads I ever had did not necessarily come from going viral. They came from the small posts, because
Yeah.
like with virality comes a lot of junk,
Mhm.
a lot of irrelevant stuff, a lot of people ready to consume your time, but not necessarily willing to offer any value in return.
Yeah.
all this stuff. Whereas when you're like slowly grinding up, which is where I consider myself now, like, and you're posting content constantly, like just forget how it performs.
Mhm.
Of course, understand what works better and what works worse, but
Yeah, why
also
not?
know that
Yeah.
when you're doing this stuff, like sometimes those other pieces, like even if they didn't blow up today, someone's going to click into your profile, they're going to scroll down. Like it's the story that you tell, it's your brand, right? And
Yeah.
so like virality is just this, it's not necessarily a good thing. Yeah, it's nice to happen every now and then, but
Yeah.
rarely do I say that that was the best post I had.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how that feels because like right now I'm just posting purely blind. Like it has nothing to do with my product.
Yeah.
Um
And the same for me, right? I'm not
yeah.
selling anything right now.
Yeah,
I was for
exactly.
a little bit, but I'm not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And that's uh but I see it, like because when I did the logo design course, right? And when I
Yeah.
launched it, you get downloads, you get sales, you get whatever. But then it dies out. And then I realized, oh shit, like to sell this, I have to be doing this on a daily basis. And that's where like the real founder shit comes in. It's like if you don't like whatever you're selling, doing it on a daily basis, it's just gonna eat at your soul. You're gonna be like because you're spending all this passion and you rely on it and whatever, and it's like, oh my God, day after day after day. So it it was truly eye-opening learning about business and then just jumping in the field and seeing, how to build the community, how to build relationships, how to build the social media stuff, how to like build the product. And now I'm gonna like, launch the product, sell the product. It's such a different like building my social media was kind of analogous a little bit to building a product because it's that daily grind of getting followers, keeping them engaged, teaching them that this is what you're about, whatever. And I feel like with the product stuff, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to have to show up every day, sell the
Yeah.
product one by one, and, just grind it out, you know,
Ton of
some,
stuff and see what works, right? Like
mhm.
the micro launch guy is the best at this, right? Like he's the
Yeah,
goal. If you want to just grind every day and just market, like
yeah,
I mean, like you can't fault the guy. He just gets summoned and he comes, and like if you look at his graphs,
yeah,
it compounded. It paid off for him.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he's great. See, yeah, he's just yeah, he's grinding it out, you know, and that's how it is. That's how you got to do it. And I think that's the takeaway from this is that if you grind it out with a curious mindset, right, and like this
Yeah.
kind of, and it comes back to the original thing you said, where it's like, who cares about a legacy? I'm trying to enjoy life, and that's how you enjoy life is skill building and exploring
Yeah.
your curiosities.
If you're not enjoying it, then you shouldn't keep doing it. That's what I say.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know that you're not going to have fun every day, right? But
Yeah,
like, if you're not enjoying the big picture, like a lot
yeah,
of developers would be better off getting a full-time job
yeah,
than they would trying to do this stuff because mostly it's like really soul crushing. It's really bad for you. Like, you have to be a bit of like a screw loose, to try and do this
yeah,
stuff because it's just generally like not a healthy life,
yeah.
especially in the beginning. But if you get past that and and you keep grinding and you like the marketing and the sales and you learn to love it, then you really get into your own.
I agree. Have you seen the old Spartacus movie?
Say it again, sorry.
Have you seen the old Spartacus movie?
I haven't seen it now.
Okay, so there's a scene. Spartacus, was like a gladiator, and
Yeah,
gladiators are obviously like slaves, right? So what he did was raise an army of gladiators, and like they all ganged up and like fought the Romans. They lost obviously, but in the movie, uh, there's this scene where the Romans capture the army, and they tell the army like, tell us who Spartacus is, your leader, and we'll spare the army and just kill Spartacus. So one person steps forward and is like, I am Spartacus. And then the other person, I am Spartacus. And there's like
yeah, okay, yeah.
scene where like the whole army is like, I am Spartacus. So what is that moment for you? Like, what is that Oliver Fish? Like, I am Oliver Fish. What is like this ideal that you stand for, that people are willing to join you in that quest, and risk their life for this idea?
I'm just in the pursuit of trying to make people see that this is I would say, my mission at this point in time, and it's a big point, a problem I have. Like,
Yeah.
People really believe it's clean and tidy when you're building these products, and like ethical marketing is the way forward. And it is just, I spent so long in my life believing that marketing, I came from like a big enterprise background, right? So marketing and sales was very different. Um, but then as I've learned and as I start to see more of this, like, and I speak to people, it's so unethical. It's so scummy. And you need to draw the line in the sand where you are comfortable and where you are not comfortable.
Mhm.
But probably most people should be being more scummy than they are. They should be willing to go and spam on Reddit. They should be willing to go spam on wherever they need to. Like, I'm not saying that you need to break the law, but you need to just put yourself out there, and it will be uncomfortable. It will be for sure. But like, at this point, I just want everyone to be parroting that same thing, like it's so easy right now in some niches. Just go and spam on Reddit. Just go and find what ranks on Google right now for the terms you're targeting and see any opportunities where you can comment. And like even if you're a little local pizzeria, it
Yeah.
would work so well. Take the city name, go post, and this is the best what's the best pizza in this city? Then put your pizzeria at the top, like this will work. This will drive leads and it will be evergreen. And like
Yeah.
I speak to so many people that do it and they see it and they like immediately lose the sense of ethics because I don't think it's unethical. And like it's the
Yeah.
same with cheating Google, right? Like they don't decide the rules. They say that you need to do it this way, but often you do it a different way and it works.
Yeah.
And then people say, but Google says you shouldn't do that. Okay, but that's not a question of ethics. That's just an algorithm where we're trying to cheat. And like it's the
Mhm.
same as social media. It's the same as everything. Just like try to reverse these things, try and understand these things, and stop expecting everything to be so clean and tidy. Be a bit unethical, and it will pay off for you.
I like this. Uh, so what is this banner that like who are we? These kinds of people that are
People in this early stage, in this very early stage of validation, where they have no brand risk, if your name gets tarnished, it doesn't matter. Like you can just buy a new domain name and try again. They won't know you. They won't follow you for it. Like
yeah,
everyone in this early stage is not is being too risk adverse even. I say everyone. A lot of people in this early stage are being too risk adverse and they could be being taking much bigger risks and they would really be rewarded.
yeah. No, it's such a because it's having that conversation of what is ethical that is l- legal, right? For me,
Yeah,
is such an important conversation to have
for sure.
because
Like,
yeah, what is this nobility? And I think a lot of people will fall back to like religion, and then it's
yeah.
like, but bro, like don't you have like a hooker problem? Like, what's going on here? Like, what is this like? All of a sudden, when it comes to your business, you're like Mr. Religious, pious, ethical,
It's
100%
because
guy.
they're uncomfortable with marketing and sales. And they're just like, you're offering them a cheat code and saying, go do this thing. It will take you 2 minutes and it will pay off. And they're not doing it because, oh, yeah, no, I don't like that kind of thing. I don't like people that send outbound, that send cold emails, like all of this stuff. Okay, but you're in business now. So, like, you don't need to like it necessarily. And also, you're not a good judge of what's like of this stuff at the early stage. You kind
Yeah,
of just have to kind of get rid of those bad feelings that you have. Uh,
yeah,
and just kind of grind on. And then, I mean, maybe when it works a little bit better, you can decide is my brand going to be associated with this stuff. But a lot of people at the early stage, it doesn't matter if they're associated with negative stuff or not. And you wouldn't believe some of the companies I've helped spam on Reddit, and you would think it's like if you looked at their site, like the most clean thing, and then they're paying me to write fake reviews.
yeah,
Just like these are very successful people that have sold companies that have done very well, and they know damn well what the game is. So
yeah,
like you can be morally right in your head, but then you're not going to succeed at your other goals.
yeah. And it's just it's just having that conversation because I'm you're saying things in a way that are shortcuts to the result,
Better, yeah.
and
I mean,
and there's like there is hey, by the way, your moral code doesn't have to line up with what people think is correct, you know, especially if you're if you think about it, like if you just think about like, hey, why is this? Why am I following what Google suggests if I can rank higher using things they don't suggest.
They're not your like a lot of these times if you dig into like why do I not want to do this, like
Mm,
you haven't got a good reason or your mental model is fucked up, like don't think that the big tech companies are your friend. Don't think that they got into the situation they got into by clean paths. There's a reason that VCs do blitz scaling. They chuck a
yeah,
ton of capital to try and get everyone bullied out of the market, and it was effective. Like even I say the Reddit example often. Reddit started by making fake users on their platform to make it look more real so they
yeah,
could dethrone Dick, and they were
mm,
successful at it. So why is it different that you would go now and be fake users on Reddit? That's literally how the company was born.
100%. And it's like
Um,
the framing of it, right? Because it's the same thing with like building public 3.0. Like in the beginning, nobody was posting anything, and I could have played the moral high ground of like I want this community to grow organically and and it's like no, I just posted every day, like 5 times a day,
yeah,
stuff I found, whatever, like made it, and it a lot of times these kinds of stupid ideas they just require a lot of either energy or coming out of your comfort zone.
yeah.
It's just explained away with either like the moral high ground or some, like you're saying, like some crazy like philosophical mental model that doesn't
I,
is not grounded in reality. And
I'm
it's
not saying
like,
you have to go like full degenerate, and you also don't have to shout from the rooftops like I do about, I can go and spam all these places and like I
yeah,
get it. You don't need to do that. If you don't want to associate your personal brand with that, I understand. No one's saying you should, but you can do this stuff so clean and so tidy. But people have a really hard time grokking it, like.
yeah,
And I mean, yeah, my goal, at least with my content at this moment in time, is to educate people about how this is not clean and it's not tidy, and the industries are really scummy. And like often, even when people make affiliate programs, it's so the black hats can come in and market their product with methods that they might not personally want to dirty their hands with. And so like there's many layers to this, but I think most people are just a little touch too careful.
bro, I think this is such a good opportunity for writing for it. Like just like the gray unicorns or something like that, where you go and just collect these stories of like the Reddit example and whatever, and like, is this ethical? Just like,
And I
like
mean,
hit on that
you go into these sales
core.
calls with these successful people, like these very successful people, and like you say to them, like, how clean do you want me to go with this? Like,
Yeah,
and I say to them, like, there's degrees of scummy. I can go the most
yeah,
scummy, and I
yeah,
list all the
yeah,
things I'm gonna do for them. And I say, oh, I can go the most
yeah,
clean, and it's gonna look like this. And I
yeah,
would say that very rarely do I meet someone that says, oh, I want it to be squeaky clean. Maybe it's
yeah,
because my messaging, by the time they got to me, then obviously that's not the right person, but
yeah.
generally, no matter what their revenue number is at, they are all about like what is the quickest way I can get to this working, and like yeah, and that's rarely the clean way.
Yeah, no, and there's huge philosophical untanglings that we can do and about like why they would accept that and whatever, but that's not the point here. The point here is,
Yeah,
yeah, the point here is you're saying, bro, a lot of these amazing stories that you look up to that you think are super squeaky clean are not that squeaky clean, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
100%,
yeah,
100% this exactly.
yeah, and it's like, hey, you define your threshold, but explore, like just this like call to explore
Yeah,
your, and it's really what it is like I said, like I'm saying, it's a shortcut. I don't like interpreting people's words a lot, but I'm just saying that's how I'm getting it, is that uh it's a shortcut to saying, is it your ethics or are you lazy? you know is it your ethics or are you just comfortable doing what you
and the
know?
thing is, if you look within yourself and you come to the conclusion, you know what, I'm not about this. This isn't for me. That there is nothing wrong with that answer.
Yeah.
But I think some people they don't take that step. They just take the gut reaction. This is
Mm.
not for me, and they don't understand why it's not for them. And those people are selling themselves short because there's a lot of people that don't have that. thought process, and there's a lot of successful ones, you know, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, no, it's I like it a lot. So, what is the bad signal for Oliver Fish? Like, what is the thing you see that you're like, I gotta put my 2 cents here?
It's search result spam now. Obviously,
Yeah,
at
such
this moment
results.
in time, if there is spam on the search results, I am all over it. So I'm monitoring a ton of keywords and like I'm looking for government domain names,
Yeah,
education institutes, any domain name that like I don't know. I look at the scummiest part of Google search and I see what's working there, and then I just I like to dig into it. If I see something new and creative, I really get my teeth into it and try and break it down, you know. I
yeah,
get a bit bored when Google's not doing a good job and the same spam is occurring over and over again.
yeah,
I love it when there's something new. So yeah, that's currently where I am. Just like anything new, any edge I can get on those search results. And I'm
yeah,
always experimenting and just like, you know, like sometimes Google hits your site, but that's the game, man.
yeah. Let's package all those, kind of last three questions together, which is like the most genius artist, Springer, when you kind of know, it's like, you see the matrix, right? And you kind of exploit that, not in unethical way, but maybe in a like gray area way.
It's just
Like,
about, I just respect the deep understanding of your problem, the grind that took you to get to that point, and then like that perfect execution where you just like all the stars have aligned, all your experience, everything is just lined up, and you see that path forward like that. And then because a lot of people will doubt themselves in that moment, and they won't pull the trigger, that's like such a wasted opportunity. And then when you see the guys that did, or people that did, like it's just, I just have
Jerry
good
Springer
respect
is
for it, you
the
know.
is the best
It's not,
example.
and in this case, it's not Jerry Springer, right? It's this guy behind. It's the producer.
Yeah, yeah. But
That
yeah,
is
but that's what I'm
the
saying. Like
genius. Yeah,
that show is the perfect example because it's not doing anything illegal, right?
yeah. Well,
Obviously, the
if you
people
watch the
want to.
documentary, they might change your mind, but yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely gonna watch that documentary after you recommended it. But I'm just thinking about it like from kind of what we talked about, and it's like this kind of complete knowledge of the market and what they would love. So
Yeah,
that kind of becomes now in conflict with, but is it right? And it's like, if it's so not right, why are so many people seeing it? Why are these people participating? You know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's this kind of like gray area, right? Which is like, hey, what's going on here? It has massive appeal, but people don't want to say that they like it. So what is going
yeah.
on here, right? So you have that idea, right? And then you got this like the Spartacus question where it was like, I want to prod this area in people, especially when it comes to building businesses. It's like, well, what's going on here? Why don't you take the risk? Why don't you want to go try spamming Reddit? How's that going to affect you in any way? Oh, it's not right. Who said so? You can
Yeah.
go create an account and reply to whatever thread. What are you doing wrong? And kind of having people think about that, right? And then it's like this kind of bad signal thing where it's like, you know, the the frontier of that, world, right, is this kind of Google search indexing that is like kind of wonky that you're in tune with, right? If you're gonna take all of that and package it into a logo, right, and put that logo on a hat, why would anybody want to wear that hat?
Yes. Um, I mean, I guess I wear that hat right now, right? So I'm the best
Mhm.
person to answer that question.
Yeah,
Why am I willing to say these things? And the
yeah,
reason is for me is because I wish someone had fucking told me sooner. You
mm,
know, like I wasted so much time thinking that I was doing the right thing, and I just don't think, in hindsight, I just don't think that's true. Now I know everyone else was cheating, you know,
yeah.
and I thought it was this clean game I was in, and I was wrong. It wasn't, and I would like to save people that time.
So it's the symbol represents this
The
kind of.
symbol, yeah, I didn't get a symbol, but
No, no,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not thinking you get there. Like this symbol represents uh, kind of clear vision of reality. in
It lets you see
business.
the full picture, right? I
Yeah,
guess what's the best way? Yeah, a lighthouse is probably a good logo for this, right?
yeah. Like, yeah, like you're in the know. Like, it's like a little wink that I know what's going on.
But you're never getting the full picture, you know. You're seeing
Yeah.
the lighthouse spin around, and
Uh-huh.
it's showing you some rocks, but at the same
Mhm.
time, still taking a bit of a gamble, you know.
Yeah. It's
Um,
no, it's great. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I was just to people take one thing away from that. If anyone listens to this, it's
Uh-huh.
just challenge what your internal belief system says just a little bit, and just understand like, are you actually harming someone, or are you just getting in your own way? And if you're getting in your own way, then like just try it. And you know, if you don't like it, then there's nothing wrong with that. But who
Yeah.
doesn't like getting sales? You know, what's the point of being in this game if you're not trying to get sales?
It's such a powerful question. Are you actually harming someone or are you getting in your own way? It's so powerful because
And when
it's
it
such
comes
a
to index fam, there is a lot of harm, to be clear. There is plenty of room to harm people. You know,
yeah, but
but you
what's
don't
the
need to, you know.
what's the best pizza? My pizza is not harming anyone.
It's not harming no one, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially if
and
you
it might
like
be
your
the thing that
pizza.
keeps you in business, especially if you
Yeah.
like your pizza, right? Yeah.
It's like what's going on? And having 10 accounts that you own that all say the same thing is also not, like still not
You're
causing any
allowed to
harm.
express your opinion and you're allowed to be
Yeah.
anonymous on the internet, and no
Mhm.
better way than multiple accounts.
Yeah, exactly. You're just putting more weight into your own world, and that should be something good. It's just such a like I'm telling you, bro, like these things, these little thought provocations is a good blog. And not for SEO or whatever. It's just for people who are interested in this kind of stuff to
Yeah,
follow
for sure.
and get those like weekly, even monthly, just checks, just like, damn, yeah,
I'm really
would
of
you?
the opinion that even if you believe you're morally against something, look at the dirtiest part of your industry, because that's probably the forefront. That's the cutting edge, because
Yeah,
those people are not operating on anything else but let's do it and see if it works, which means
yeah,
that you'll see what's successful, and that's the bleeding edge. You
hmm
know, so then your only question is how do I take that dirty thing and clean it up into a nice kosher thing for my
yeah,
business, you know? And like that is why I was early to Reddit.
yeah,
And that is why I'm saying to people, oh, go put markdown documents on GitHub because these are ranking on Google, you know,
mhm.
and it doesn't mean you have to spam in them. You can go write guides to your product. You can go write anything, you know, like, and all these little things, just the case that go and look what the worst part of your industry is doing and see, can I do this in a way that's okay for me? And if you do it, you know, even if you choose to do none of those things, you'll at least have an understanding of what the competitors do.
Yeah, and exactly. And it's not like, oh no, no, I don't want to see this. It's like, bro, it's happened. Like just
It's happened, exactly.
yeah, just figure it out. Yeah. So what's the
Are you
next?
going to learn or are you going to close
Yeah,
your eyes to it, you know?
yeah, exactly. And it's so stupid when you kind of do close your eyes to it because you don't know how it's gonna affect you,
Yeah, of course.
you know? And if there's some like you're saying, like the SEO stuff that is dying, a lot of this informational stuff is dying and more high intent stuff is still gonna be there, right? And if you're HubSpot, like someone posted this picture of HubSpot, right? Like, and their SEOs like doing this, and their takeaway from it was SEO is dying and all this bullshit. And it's like, bro, no, HubSpot is full of this informational crap.
I think
It's
that's a
not
lot
high
of people's
intent.
take from it, but I think they miss one take, and it's the best
Yeah,
take of all from this. Google is not your friend. You think you're so kosher and clean.
yeah,
HubSpot, I suspect you think is a clean brand. Look what Google did to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
So I promise you, they have no qualms about crushing you the exact same way, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
yeah,
when you have that thought process of am I being ethical or not, just understand who is necessarily on the other side of the rule book,
yeah.
because
Exactly.
they don't play by the rules that they set out.
That's another that's another good take. Exactly. It was just like Google has something against HubSpot, and they're like, yeah, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah, and I'm sure they will not tell them what it is. It will be an
Mhm.
algorithmic punishment. I didn't look deep into the thing. I think the hot take is like some people are like, oh yeah, they should make these changes on their site. No, you should just understand that you shouldn't be all in on SEO. You need additional channel. You're at high risk, and you know even if you don't break the rules, they might still come for you and not tell you why.
No, it's such a good, yeah, and understand, yeah, it's about understanding and moving with the flow and understanding reality. Like you're saying,
Yeah,
like, hey, there's other search engines, there's other ways of getting found. Use all of them. Like de-risk your whatever platform dependence on whatever you're doing.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's you know, I need to figure that. Like for me now, I'm fully dependent on the Twitter platform for my brain stuff. I'm kind of doing a hedge on YouTube and like my newsletter, but it's not as big as the Twitter stuff.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having one of your channels as the biggest, right? But as long
Yeah,
as you're working on the others and you're trying to
yeah,
bet your best to get out of it, and at least
yeah,
getting some email addresses to get them off platform if you need to, like all
hmm
these things where if it goes bad, then you're okay.
yeah. What's your next three phases for you?
The next three phases for me. So first, like polishing the product I'm working on, like a
Hmm
lot of development work right now, which is like not my favorite thing, but needs
Yeah.
to be done. And then maybe launch a new product.
hmm
Probably something I can market on Twitter, just because like it's a wasted opportunity if I don't.
Yeah.
Uh, and then lastly, just probably another product, but like what I'm looking for is like mega clean niche. Like
hmm
everyone in there really cares about a strong moral code, and then I can walk in and not do that and see if I
Yeah.
can take some of the channel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm currently researching opportunities like that, but in a sense, like as many little products as I can get. Step three would be like a three company holdco, I guess.
Yeah.
And then after that, hopefully no longer building, just buying, unless I see like a big opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's you know. So back to the first question. I'm curious to see same thing. Imagine your life, peak impact. I want you to draw your impact at that moment.
Uh, So you say like after point three, right?
No, at peak impact. Like if you imagine your future and you imagine yourself at the like at peak impact.
I mean, my picture is the same, right? I work towards the same goal. It's exactly the same. I can show
It is.
again.
I kind of had a feeling it was exactly the same, but
Exactly the same picture.
yeah. But let me kind of prod you to draw a different picture, right? Like, do you see yourself having an impact on the world instead of like an
No,
impact on yourself? No.
not even slightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like. I think that I don't. I'm not seeking this higher purpose. I don't intend to have children. Like I just aim for the quiet freedom life and grind my way there. And then when I get there, maybe my goals will change. But unlikely. At that point, it's simply this. I can work on whatever I like to work on. And if I'm not enjoying it, I'm not going to do it.